Hey everyone, Cahlen here, and I've had this hot tent probably before last winter, maybe almost 6 months, and I have spent a fair amount of time in it, so I thought it would be good to give a review of it in case there are people who are considering getting something like this for either enjoyment or perhaps survival purposes. So overall, the review is this thing is really strong and sturdy, and unless you're in like a really strong windstorm, I'm talking probably over maybe around 80 miles per hour or more, it's gonna hold up. I've gone through some pretty serious stuff and it's been totally fine. But we're gonna talk about some of the things that you should know if you do get it. But overall, I think it's a really good option. It's fairly inexpensive. You can carry it around with you in a bag. You can even have a hot stove. Now we're not going to be looking at the hot stove today. I might mention it a few times, but I'm not going to really pull it out. But anyways, even without a hot stove, it's totally viable, comfortable, spacious shelter. So let's take a look. So this is a Pomoly tent. I don't remember which one. I'll leave a link, of course. There's the brand. I think it's made in China. It is fairly thick material and it is lined with this aluminum stuff. It's supposed to help when you have the fire. I don't have the impression it helps that much, but I guess I didn't have a really clean scientific study about it, so it's just my impression. I'm not sure the aluminum really helps that much. That is the stove jack, which is where the stovepipe would come out, and the stove would be sitting in there down there, and the stove would come out and be above the top of the tent, ideally. I did still get some burned holes over time. You're just going to get burned holes if you're using a stove. I think the stove is not really necessary. So anyways, there are points where it connects to a stake, and I use big wood stakes that I make myself. You know, there's 6 points where it does that, and then also there is a guy line, which is extremely important if you want this to survive a windstorm. This basically is a hood, and you can take it off. Oops, sorry. You can take it off entirely, right? And so it's more like a teepee, and also that'd be good for hotter days to kind of vent all of that type of stuff. And one nice thing, so it actually has 2 doors. So here's one, that one opens up, and then you can actually roll it and get it out of your way. I've never really done that. There's another one on the opposite side, which I actually have never used. So one downside about these doors is because of how if you have the guy lines, it creates tension points when you're zipping up and down, and the zipper, first one did kind of wear out. I may be able to fix it, but it doesn't close very easily anymore, so I have to use the top zipper now, which is probably going to wear out. So just minimize your zippers by using the Velcro that they have here, which I discovered late is actually really helpful, right? So now I don't need to zip up and down all the time. There's another Velcro right here, so it's really easy to get in and out without wearing out my zipper. So let's take a look inside. It's probably a little bit messy. So there's my kind of immediate food and gear that I'm kind of using. There's my bed. There's a bunch of stuff there's my winter sleeping bag full of all my winter stuff, which I'm going to go hide somewhere. There's some like supplements and stuff and food and stuff and electronic equipment. But anyways, it's very spacious for one person at least. Like, look, that's my bed. Lots of space, right? Even on the other side of me. So there's this pole which holds up the tent, and it even has this little silver thing that's like a lantern holder, which I've never used, but is nice never used for a lantern. Anyways, but it is a nice feature for lots of different reasons. These things come apart, so they come in multiple sections. The only downside about this pole is it does, when snow gets on, you may even be able to tell, it bends, right? If a lot of snow gets on it, or even not that much, it puts weight on the pole and may bend the pole. And so you have to kind of be aware of it and bend it back. The tent also has this little vent which keeps kind of the air flowing, which is really important if you have the stove. but not as important. You know, it's still good to have air ventilation, and you know that's where I basically put my head when I'm sleeping, so it can be helpful. So I'm going to show you the hot tent bag. This is the bag that holds the wood stove and the chimney and another aspect which I added to it. So basically, this is the chimney. This is rolled up, and you know, it looks like it's only this long, right? This stuff right here only goes to up about right here right now, right? So that turns into the chimney. You roll it out, and then you roll it this way, and now you've got like a 9-foot or whatever it is chimney. It's a little bit fragile. It breaks in the wind pretty easily. You need to take it down if you know there's going to be strong winds, which is a giant downside, honestly. This is the spark arrestor, which stops sparks from exiting this and then landing on your tent, though they still will. These things hold the chimney in its shape. This is where the chimney attaches. It has a little baffle or whatever like that. So right now it's folded down flat, right? So this is how thick it is, because it folds down, and it's really light. This whole thing, what did I say? 4 pounds. Wood, a fire stove. Like, I can cook on this. I can cook multiple pots on this thing. It can get really hot in here. This thing's nice, though. Honestly, I'll talk about it in a second. So this thing is a thermoelectric generator. So I fill it with water. It has a USB cable coming out of it that I can plug anything into, and I put it on the wood stove, and it recharges the battery of a USB device, right? So that's pretty cool. I used the wood stove at the very beginning of winter when it started to get cold, and the feeling was that it felt necessary, but to me it was just too much work. And because I had a really good set of clothes using the military's cold weather clothing system, you know, basically having multiple layers of different types, I could be outside all day and all night in the cold because I was wearing the right clothes, and having a fire was just kind of like a cozy, luxurious thing to do. But ultimately, if you're doing that every day, you have to also be chopping all that wood every day, and that was just a pain in the butt, and also having to worry about the wind and stuff. So in my opinion, it didn't really get cold enough for it to be necessary to have the stove. And honestly, I think it would have to get a lot colder before I felt that way. And even then, I didn't there's the aluminum on the inside of the tent. I didn't really feel like it held the heat in very well. So you just have to keep in mind a tent is fabric that's fairly thin. It's not going to hold heat in that well. You know, even if you line it with aluminum, it's going to be losing a lot of the heat out through that wall. So that's just one thing. That's the way it is if you're just going to have a single layer, thin layer of home. But you know, it could get hot enough to keep you warm enough that you're going to not die if it's cold enough to kill you outside, right? So, and if you put a lot of work into it, you can get it really, really hot. You can get easily above 100 degrees, but you'd have to be throwing wood in there like crazy, and constantly, because it does. Anyways, so hot tent as a structure, even without the stove, this is a really good home. Oh, I forgot to mention, when there's wind, if you don't have it, even if you have it well guyed out with the guy lines, for me, it's really annoying to be in a structure which is kind of shaking in the wind and making noise. So that's another big downside, but you're going to have that problem with any type of tarp, tent, you know, shelter. So that's just something to keep in mind. It is very sturdy. It's basically stood by itself without me having to check on it for a very long time. I did just redo the guy lines because we're going to have a windstorm today, but I know that it's not going anywhere. So anyways, if you need a house and you got, you know, I think it's like between $300 and $500, I can't remember, but you can get something like this, and you could live in it. You know, you don't need to be paying rent. Pay 1 month of rent. Maybe for some of you, like in San Francisco, like 1/5 of your rent, and buy a home that you can live on. And I guess you got to find, at that point, find some place to put it. But you know, you can move around on National Forest and BLM land. You can stay in any single place for up to 2 weeks. Then you have to move like around 20 miles or something like that, and that's not difficult. You could walk 20 miles in a day. So, you know, every 2 weeks you got to walk 20 miles and you can spread it out. So that's one option. You can also do what I'm doing, find a good farm that could use some help and settle down there and get busy, you know, get helping out, because we're going to need to have local farms if we're going to survive what is planned for us. So anyways, that's the hot tent. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please consider sharing it. If you'd like to help me out in a more substantial way, you can learn how to do so at cahlen.org/gift. And if you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation with me, whether publicly or privately, you can learn how to do so at cahlen.org/one-on-one. Thanks again for watching.